Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating where we dig into the whys of people's behavior when it comes to dating. And speaking of dating, Julie's been dating. Everyone wants to hear the update about Julie's
Oh my God.
recent dates, or date, I should say. Or no, I won't give it away. You just give the update.
Yeah, so anyways, I feel like we heard the snafu last week. For anyone that missed it, there was a tech glitch error that I didn't get a text from WhatsApp, but I finally got it on Thursday. The guy had sent it on Saturday. So, anyways, we talk, we make a plan. Like, he was the one to initiate, like, setting up a plan for the following week. So, I'm like, okay, this is, I was actually getting more excited about it because I know also we talked about, like, my feeling towards it. And I had mentioned that because it was a socially distanced date and we had talked about politics a lot, like, I didn't really have a feel for it. Like, I enjoyed myself, but didn't really get to a deeper level, but I was totally open, but also wouldn't be devastated if it didn't work out. So that's kind of the backstory for anyone that's missed the the past episodes. If you haven't, definitely check it out because yeah, there's great stuff, but also you'll get the whole scoop. So, anyways, we have the date set up. It's going to be Thursday night. I'm like looking forward to it. I'm getting ready for the date. I'm about to get in the shower and I see a message and I just assume it's like a confirmation message. But I open the message and it's basically like, hey, I decided that I don't want to pursue us anymore and I'm going to cancel the date. It was like very blunt. And I sent it to you, hey. And I was like, wow, I've never really experienced something like this. Like, I've definitely experienced situations where I thought it was a good date and then they just never followed up, or I like asked to hang out and it was kind of like either at that point it wasn't a fit or just ghosted. Never had a situation where someone like blatantly was the one pursuing it and then there was a switch that was so blatant, like, I don't even want to meet you at all, like, I've decided like you are not a fit.
And the
So
way he worded it was, I changed my mind about us.
yeah, like
I
it
thought
was
that
very
was very, I've never seen that or heard that before, but it seemed very abrupt.
Yeah, and I think like why I wanted to bring it up on the podcast is, I mean, you just never know. First of all, I have no idea what is really going on in this guy's life. Like, could have zero to do with me. However, in the time from setting up the date to, like, he set up the date and then we had follow-up conversations, and it started off, he was talking about like a side project he was pursuing. So also, just to give background, I had not shared anything about the podcast with him. He had no idea I even did this. Like, that's how, surface level it was, in the
And he
sense of
doesn't know
like
your
getting.
last name.
No, he did not know my last name. So I don't think he had any idea of this podcast existing. So I don't think he's listened to any of the past episodes or anything. So it did come up. He was the reason why we didn't make plans like the week, like when we got reconnected on Fridays, because he had plans to like work on a side project with a friend coming in from town. So that's why he had suggested the week after. So in conversation, he's like, oh, do you work on any side projects, or have you ever thought about doing it? And at that point, I'm like, I can't like lie and be like,
No.
I've been working as like for like 5 years, like. So at that point, I was like, oh yeah, I do actually have something I work on. And he's like, can you send me the link? And I feel like I would rather share about the dating podcast in person, because I think it can be misinterpreted.
For
Like, they
sure.
think that you're airing all your dating life. And maybe recently I have been a little more than we used to. I think in the past it was like, oh no, we don't do that. But I think also because it's been so novel, right? Like, this whole socially distanced date. I think because he was my first socially distanced date, it actually didn't really matter if it was him or anyone else. I was thinking about this, like, I feel like in the past I haven't updated, I felt the need to update people on every last date I went on, because they were just like such a dime a dozen. But now there's like something about it that feels like special again, like he's like my first. So, anyways, I did share with him that I had this dating podcast, and I was like, I'm happy, I'll tell you more in person because we already had the time set up. And I'm like, I never like talk about people beyond like their comfort level, like past exes, etc. It's more about like the stories and just what's changing in modern dating culture.
But you didn't tell him the name.
I didn't tell him the name because I didn't want him to Google us. I think also what made me take a step back, I think if the last couple episodes we had it like explicitly
Right.
talked about this, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God. I was like
And you
thinking
know
about
he'll
it.
start there at the
Right,
newest
exactly.
episodes.
I was like thinking about it. I was like, oh my God, the last couple episodes, we like literally like the last one, there's no misinterpretation that was him, right? With like the
Mm-hmm.
glitch of like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
having tech glitches with that many people. And I think like you also were like on a scale of 1 to 10,
I
like, and
know.
I was like thinking back and I'm like, oh my God, if I heard someone like I know it wasn't meant in like a personal way to him because I just felt like we didn't have that banter yet. But if I had heard someone be like, oh, I'm a 5, like I probably wouldn't be that excited to meet them either.
Right.
So I was like
Yeah.
replaying everything that I had said. I was like, oh my God, I do not want this guy to hear it. And I think that's a lesson to me that if I don't want someone to hear something, I probably shouldn't be saying it. So, anyways, my gut feeling is that he Googled, like, I literally did a Google on an incognito, so it's not even like using my history. I did Julie dating podcast, and we showed up like
We're the first
at the
one.
top. I'm like, damn, our SEO is too good for our own good.
And then it's your picture too. So there's no
Yes,
mistaking that it's you.
was, there was no mystery. So my guess is that he heard, and I think why I wanted to share. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there was something else that happened. I was like, I just don't think that like there wasn't anything else big that would have like changed your mind, that
Do you
drastically.
think he was like getting ready for the date or getting pumped and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to check out her podcast so I can
And
have
he's
something
like
to talk
listening.
about on our
He's
date."
like, oh my God, no.
And this happened around like 1:30, and then he heard that
Maybe.
episode
Who
maybe and
knows?
he's
Because it
like,
was like day of, like I was like literally, like, it wasn't like I was about to step out. We were meeting at 6:30. It was like 2:30. But I was like, because I had stuff the rest of the day and I had a break. And I'm like, I'm gonna take a shower, get ready so I'm not like stressed at 5. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I have all night to get ready. Because I'm not going on this anymore. Like we had a restaurant picked out. Like it was like he had like made some plans. Like it was just very, like I'm thinking about him, like if he was like not attracted or something, like would he have even like made that plan? Like he would have known at that point, right? Like
"Yeah, what
something
if
changed.
you were listening to this episode now? What would you say to him? What would you want to say to him?"
I think what I'm gonna take away from this, like I'm like, I can never control his behavior. It literally could be not this at all. Like I have no idea, right? But I think for me, like I definitely want to share dating updates with people on the podcast, but I think I'm gonna try to be a little less specific. I think I got a little overzealous because it was the first person. So I do want to say, like, if this did offend you in any way, like I do apologize for kind of giving private. I mean, I don't think I disclosed anything super private, but talking about someone against their will necessarily, I think I would maybe not do that in the future and keep it a little more general. So,
That's the
listeners,
trickiest thing about having a dating podcast because you want to talk about your dating experiences, but then there are people who are victims of the storytelling.
exactly.
And
We don't,
sometimes we get caught up in the storytelling aspect. We forget that there is a person behind that story too. So that's,
right.
we've all, I mean, I think any dating podcaster has definitely
Because I
experienced
mean,
this
what
before.
was like your boyfriend? You guys were a little different because you like knew each other on a friend level first. But like when he heard that you did this, did he have a reaction at all?
Yeah, he was like, I'm never going to listen to it because I just don't want to hear you talk about me. He hasn't.
So,
The only
yeah.
times he's listened to it is with me. So he
Yep.
can at least react in real time.
I mean, it makes sense. I think that's what it was like. I'm thinking about this guy listening on his own, like barely knowing me in the first place, right?
Uh,
Like I don't know how I would feel if it was a reverse. So I'm gonna try to be a little more conscious of that. But yeah, I will keep people updated high level, maybe a little more ambiguous, maybe not real time. Like that might be the
yeah.
caveat. But
But your
yeah,
intentions are always good. You're still looking for love. So the
I
intentions are still
know.
there. You're not dating for the sake of telling stories on a dating podcast.
Totally. I mean, I think it's interesting though, because I'm like thinking about like my ex, not like my like super serious ex, but like the ex that left for the UK. Like I told him, I think on our third date, and he was definitely like when I first told him, like he was like a little taken back, like, "Oh, are you talking about me on this podcast?" And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh no, that's not what it's about." And then he was like, "Wait, why aren't you talking about me on this podcast?" But we had built like such a rapport by then. Like we were already like super into each other. So I think
Mm-hmm.
hearing that, like when you can like share it first, like first of all, not through text, like you could just share it in person, and you already like know this person's like a genuine person. I think that also changes the context a bit.
Yeah.
I
Well, it
don't think
just
he
have to
ever
be,
listened either.
yeah. It's a little awkward.
Although my
Absolutely.
other ex is like all about it, and he's like, talk about me, whatever, and I want to be on here. So yeah, it really just depends on your personality. But we also had like way more history, and we dated even before I started this thing. So
Yeah.
like, it's just hard to sometimes put it into context with new people.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also, it's such a big part of what you do. So you
It
also don't want to
is.
hide it.
No, and if someone Googles, you can like easily find it.
Yeah.
It's a
It's a
tough
little
one.
tricky. That's why you
It's
got to
like,
change your name on these dating apps. I told you. You got to change it.
yeah, but what am I gonna do? Go on a date like for like 3 dates and then be like, oh, by the way, my name is Julie. I was lying to you the whole time.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure like therapists feel the same. Like, I'm sure like there's other occupations that are super intimidating to people. It's not just this, right?
Right. That's true. Yeah. We just have to find a happy medium. I think your rule is right that maybe you don't update in real time and that you're not as specific, but you can talk more high level.
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing, this is going to get into the episode today, is we did on our first date. I think the reason I walked away so like lukewarm is because we talked about politics like the whole time. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
hard when it's so fresh right now. And FYI, for everyone to go out and vote before we go into it. That is our huge takeaway here. But I think we talked about it so long and we actually had similar views. So it wasn't like a like butting head situation. But I walked away being like, that was a good conversation. I'm glad I heard where he's coming from, but I could have literally had that convo with you, like
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't anything about him that I like learned. Like I didn't really learn like what made him tick, like what
Mm.
he, like who he was as a person. Like it was kind of like it was very interchangeable. And I think we'll go into it in this episode. Like I think politics are really good to gauge someone's values, but it might not be something that warrants like the entire conversation because then you're just like losing out on them as a person.
But it's such a hot topic right now, especially this week. This week is going to be even more.
Oof.
How can you not talk about politics on a date, right? And then next week, I mean, it's just going to be a hot topic for so long. But we made it the only topic for this
Yes.
date. Yes, we did. We did it. We did this experiment. We were asking for people to be set up on a date with someone who may have opposite political beliefs. And we found two people who were willing to do so. And we got them on a date. But the first half of the date, they could not talk about politics.
So that's kind of the difference, right? Because like if
Mm-hmm.
I was on this date with this guy, we only met for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, where they like basically spent an hour, I think it was like an hour and a half without any politics talk. And we actually gave them the 36 questions to finding love to like kind of guide it into a deeper way. And we also set them on up on a cooking challenge. So it was a virtual day, but we made it a little more entertaining and interesting. And yeah, it was politics was not on the table at all the first half.
And then the second half,
It was.
open the floodgates.
And
Let's
what
talk
was
about it.
interesting about this too is we didn't actually have two people that were super extreme. Like there was one
Mm-hmm.
that was, I mean, like the two people we had, Kiki and Tom, So they were both more like independent thinkers. Like that's how they considered themselves. Kiki definitely leaned towards Democrats. She said she's only voted for Democrats in the past. She was voting for Joe Biden. There was no question about that. She's an African American, or she's a Black woman. So she like felt very, like personal, like things were personal with Trump. So she's very against Trump. And then Tom, on the other hand, is more conservative. He's still like, he doesn't identify as like full right, but he's still more conservative. He was raised in a very conservative upbringing.
What he calls a
And
cult.
yes, he mentioned that he calls it a
We didn't
cult.
call it a cult. He called it a
Yeah,
cult.
that was self-proclaimed words. And he also, like, he was basically debating between Trump and then Jorgensen, who is the libertarian candidate. So he was very much no on Biden, just the way he thought. Like, he didn't believe in the way Democrats controlled the environment. He didn't believe the way that Democrats ran office and did government practices. So yes, we had two extreme views. We won't give too much away, but it was not what I was expecting at all. I think there was a little bit of a roller coaster on this of changing. I kind of went back and forth, like maybe this is a match, maybe this isn't a match. Like it just kept going back and forth. So definitely tune in for the whole thing because it's a ride, and you get to hear people's like dates. It's always good to hear those two perspectives of the same date.
The context of this date is so unique because you go into it knowing that you have different political beliefs. Like you would never go on a real date in real life. And
You could. If you were on Hinge, it says what political affiliation you
that's
have.
true.
So you definitely could know. Like if I saw someone was conservative, like if I saw someone, I think it says like liberal conservative, it doesn't say Democrat, Republican, but you still could know, hands down.
But you're also not going on a date just to argue for your case. But for this context, it was knowingly you're going in with opposing political beliefs and seeing if there is a romantic connection. Like you're going into it with this mindset that it probably wouldn't work out. So then
Yeah.
the expectations are pretty low. But it is, I agree with you. It was a very fascinating outcome of what happened. It was like a roller coaster. We could not get a good read on the two
Nope.
of them. But at the end of it all, we had a lot of takeaways. So I will leave it at that because
Leave it at that. But
we
for
don't need to
anyone
talk
that
more.
is triggered by this, like both people were very open and they said like that was what their expectation was, that people would sign up for this, weren't going to be like super, like racist comments or like just like the things that like I think are very triggering to people. And I think for me that was eye-opening because when we posted this, there were a lot of comments like I would never, like all people of this or this, like very like blanket statements. And I think even talking, like I talked to a woman that we didn't end up going with because we couldn't find a match there. It made more sense the people we chose. But she was saying that like she gets like outright hate for her views. And I
Mm-hmm.
think like, I mean, whether I agree with them or not, or whoever agrees with them or not, like it's still like a lot of judgment is being passed right now without looking at the person as a person. And yeah, so I think it was a reminder. I think my other thing is I keep getting all these alerts of Republican Facebook groups that I joined to
Oh
find
my gosh.
someone. We actually, ironically, didn't end up using anyone. It was like listeners of this podcast, but I like joined a bunch of Republican groups and I keep seeing them like pop up, and I'm like, I gotta remove this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Speaking of,
Facebook is
yeah,
so confused by your political beliefs right now. They're like, she seems like she's undecided.
yeah,
But the main point of all of this is to go vote. Go
yes,
vote. Go
go
vote.
vote,
It is so important to get your
early
voice
vote if you can.
heard, yes, and get your voice counted. It is very, very important. And get your voice counted when it comes to our reviews too. We want to hear from
Yeah.
you. If you go into Apple Podcasts, you can tell us what you think about us. Give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it, and leave us a little comment or a long comment, whatever it may be, because we want to hear your voice and why you're listening to us and how you even found us and
Yep.
where we can even improve. We're always down for more feedback.
Yep.
And if you want to talk to us even more, Instagram. We're always on Instagram. And if you feel like you were inspired by an episode, triggered by an episode, you want to be a guest on the episode, DM us on Instagram. That's the easiest way to reach us.
Yep. And then the Facebook group, just want to do a quick kind of PSA is we do have questions like the are, like they're technically not like that we have them listed as required because one of them is like, what does being dateable mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only one that's technically required. There's some optionals too, but we actually are looking at those because we do want to make sure this is a safe space. And especially right now in the time of politics, there are a lot of like bots and like fake accounts out there. So we definitely don't want to be denying dateable listeners, but if you don't give us any info, it makes it hard because we also don't want to be we just don't know who's listening, right? Like we can't put your name to this. So I know it only takes us like it's maybe a little annoying to write something, but it takes a second. If you could just kind of drop something so we know that you're a real human and that we know that you're a dateable listener, that will help us keep the community safe. So big announcement time, shall we?
Is it a big announcement? People know about this, but it's a repeat of a big announcement.
A medium announcement?
A medium announcement. It's a yellow announcement, not a red announcement. We launched the sounding board, and we have already gotten so many people join this community. It is our newest offering that we've been trying to do for years. I think we've been like thinking of a way to help people date better and smarter in a context of personal development. So it's not coaching. It's not telling you all these like shortcuts or hacks. It's really about digging deep into who you are, knowing yourself better, and how you can take control of your love life. So we called it the sounding board. It is a monthly offering, and there are multiple tiers to it. You can just go to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board to find out information, but we are limiting the spots so we can have more quality attention or pay quality attention to everyone who joins. But you should join by the 29th of October.
28th, ideally, but yes, 29th.
Because on the 29th, we are having our launch event, basically, and we're calling it the Dating Council, where Julie and I will weigh in on your latest dating conundrum. Because I'm sure we've all been there where something happens and you're like, ugh, I need a second opinion, or I wish I get more people's opinion on what I should do next.
Yep.
Well, now it's your chance. On the 29th of October, if you're listening to this on the day that this comes out, it's tomorrow. So you got to sign up now. Sign up. So if you sign up for the sounding board by the 29th, you will receive a free invite. And this is an invite only event. So you'll receive an invite to this event.
I'm super excited about this. And also, like, if you don't have a conundrum, you can just watch. Like, you don't need to participate. But obviously, we want to help people as much as we can while making it entertaining. But I think, like, this type of stuff, like, why I'm so excited about the sounding board is because also, in addition, UA and I recorded our first audio, like the exclusive audio that we're putting in the audio series that everyone gets. That's just like helps you kind of like take inventory of your own dating life and helps you navigate all the ups and downs. Like the down I was talking about, like I admit it was a little discouraging, like getting in that shower ready to go on a date and then getting that. But I thought back to how I would have handled this like 3 years ago or maybe even longer. Like I think I would have taken it a lot more personally. I would have maybe even just blamed him, where in the fact, like, yes, it was discouraging, but I could see, like, how can I react to this? I ended up, like, going out with a friend and we had, like, a really fun night. So I'm like, okay, I was able to, like, not dwell on this, think poorly about it. And also, like, what can I change in the future? Like, that's what's in your control. Like, just seeking out like what other people are doing is never going to really help you get there. So I think that's why we're super excited about this, is that we can help people really shift their mindset, because the reality is we can't control what dating throws at us, or when you're in a relationship, new stuff comes up. It's all about how you communicate, how you perceive it, and how you move forward.
In addition to having access to both Julie and I as your dating Sherpas, you also have access to each other, other people who've joined the sounding board to use as your sounding board as well. And we are so keen on creating a high quality community that is really empathetic and also just great listeners for each other. So it's not just us, it's also this community that you're subscribing into. Okay,
Okay.
well, let's see if our two guests are meant to be, Kiki and Tom.